Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Saaghe Fogwe podcast. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'm super excited, getting used to this evening, the evening hours. But we've been listening to your feedback. We've been listening to the viewers, and we're trying to play with the times on the show to see what will work for most people. Hopefully, the evenings people are more relaxed. You're not stealing time from your boss to watch. so so we'll see how this works. We'll play around with it, and just so that we can accommodate. We do this for the community, so we want to make sure that the community is involved. The community is part of this, and you're getting enriched. You're getting empowered. You're getting uplifted by whatever you learn on this show. So today we're bringing back someone who was already on the show a few months ago, and we did promise that he will be back because he is a wealth of knowledge. They say knowledge doesn't come in big packages, right? This one comes in a little package in a young man. And the topic today is for boys in men's bodies. I know the topic was just bizarre because I had a few people send me a message privately when they saw me advertise the show, and they're like, "From boys in men's bodies." So we'll hear from him. So we'll bring back to your screen, to my screen, and to your, whatever social media channel, Asaba Ngu
Hey,
Ishmael. Yeah, I mixed up the name, but Ishmael A. Ngu.
yes, sir. Hi, Auntie.
Welcome back.
Thank you, thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. And we had him last time talking about bringing the African experience to a Western perspective, or an African perspective, the Western experience,
Yes.
something like that. And if you didn't watch him on that show, you can go back and watch that on our YouTube channel. But for those who don't know you and who didn't watch the other show, we still want you to go ahead and reintroduce yourself. I know it gets redundant, but you
Yeah.
talk about yourself, and you
Okay.
can do it in your sleep. So introduce yourself to people so they know who you are, sir.
Okay. First and foremost, the most important thing is you are my auntie. People don't know that. So people need to know that. They need to also know you're one of my favorite people in the world and that your nickname is coolest because you're the coolest person ever. So they need to know that first and foremost because family is gold, as they say. So my name is Ishmael. I come from Cameroon, of course, in West Africa. I am a investment manager as well. I am also an author. I've written about 3 books currently, and I work with men. I work with young men, with youth, young adults, just to help them grow and become more like, I don't know if I would say more like men, but just more like mature men in a sense.
Mhm.
And I'm also a speaker. I travel around and I do speaking engagements on topics of communication, leadership, especially faith and family. Those are the 2 main ones. And I also do have an opportunity to work with a low-key diplomat on the continent of Africa. So I do quite a few things, but I'm just a young professional who loves to be a part of the change and who loves to effect change.
Yeah, you're being a little modest, but yeah, we'll take it. For a young man in his 30s to do all these things, it is amazing for you to do this. And we talk a lot. Not, I mean, recently we haven't caught up. There are a lot of things we have to catch up on after the show,
Right. That is
but
correct.
we talk quite a bit. He's one of those that when I get off the phone with, I'm very enriched. Um, because sometimes in our community we think that because you're older, you know more than a younger person, or you know it all, but you don't. You can
Yes.
learn from somebody who's younger than you. You can
Yes.
definitely learn from someone who shows the potential that they want to teach, or they want to impact their knowledge on somebody else. And this is one of those young men. And that's why I'm willing to bring him back multiple times on this show, because he has a lot to share. He has, in his few 30 plus years, he has learned a lot, and he's gone through a lot of experience. And that's why we're talking about this. The topic today is actually a title of one of his books.
Mm-hmm.
So for boys in men's
Immense
body.
bodies.
Yeah, and we'll go into it in detail. But before we go into like the beef of the matter, first of all, talk to us about why it's even important for young men or for boys to be trained a certain way, and how does this influence them when they're men? How does it why does it even matter to shape a boy a certain way before they grow up to be a man?
Okay, I'll try to go about it maybe in two ways. First of all, let's do historically speaking. The way boys were raised to become men, historically speaking, was different. They say men communicate side by side, but women communicate face to face. And so if you look at it right now in an environment, we don't even have the side by side connection, conversation going on between men, between boys and men, or between boys and boys anymore. And so it's already a big challenge for boys to be able to transition to become fully men. So even though they become adults, inside in their hearts, they are still kids because they haven't fully grown up or fully transitioned yet because there was no one to show them. And then, just from a psychological perspective, why it's very important is because men and women, I know there's a lot of politics going on around identity at the moment, but boys and girls, men and women are fundamentally different. And unfortunately, there's just a war against men, right? Because a man, fundamentally speaking, is four things in nature. A man is a friend, a man is a mentor, a man is a father, and then a man is a king. And a man is always out there trying to find a way to provide for his family or find a way to protect his family. But because men have been emasculated today, there are not too many examples for what it looks like to be a man, or any safe spaces to really, or too many safe spaces for boys or men to just be who they are, or actually explore what that looks like. So because we have the situation in our current culture at the moment, it is very important then for people who at least know what that looks like to step in and help men transition. Because if real men don't teach boys how to be men, or teach men how to be men, then we have women who would try to we have women who would teach men to be what they
Want
want
them to
their
be
men to be like,
like, what
right?
do you what do you imagine them to be, right?
Yeah,
Like,
what do you
in
imagine
your
them to be
head,
like, pretty
you,
much?
you
Yeah.
make you make the man that what you think they should be.
Right. Yeah. So the women, you make the man, you think you make this person that you're hoping or you think this man should be, and then if you already have that mindset as a single mom, or maybe a woman who's raising kids or teaching men, and all you're doing is inflecting and imposing all of these thoughts, ideas, and ideologies into this man, and this is all that the man is believing and growing up and growing, and this is all that the man is growing up to be like. So that becomes a challenge, because when the man becomes a man, and what I've realized is when men cross that teenage year and enter young adulthood, there is already an ingrained expectation in the minds of people that there are certain things you are supposed to know, and there are certain things you're already supposed to be doing. People might not say it, they might not think it, but unfortunately it's subconscious. There is already an expectation for you to be able to do certain things in your life. I'll give you just a slight example. I live with an uncle of mine, and he asked me to start up a grill and make some chicken. Well, no one ever taught me how to do that, so I didn't know what in the world to do. So when I told him I didn't know what to do, he was shocked. He said, "You mean to tell me you're this grown up and you don't know how to do something this basic?" Well, that was a very embarrassing for me as a young adult. But unfortunately,
Mhm.
if I don't know what I don't know, and no one taught me anything. So it was embarrassing for me, but that was already his expectation. And
Mhm.
if a man of his caliber thinks like that, imagine what the women are thinking. It's
Mhm.
far beyond that. So I'll end there and see
But
if
you
you have.
can also see how, and it will probably go off on a tangent here, as always. So you can see how, when you see a woman who's frustrated about certain expectation, having expectations in a man that they're with,
Mhm.
and we even throw out the statement like, "I'm not your mom, I know be your mommy." so,
Yeah, yeah.
so I'm not the one who has to train you, because you're expecting that they should come to you trained,
Mhm.
that they're not one. Even though we joke about it, that you count, when you're counting your kids, you count your husband as one of your kids, right? We joke
Mhm.
about it, but it's for real, because there's
Yeah,
certain
it's true.
things that, I mean, think about your uncle. There's certain things that that come with the package. You get to
Mhm.
learn them along but would you blame a woman who reacts that way? Because you started off saying that men have been emasculated, but it's because, again, you're expecting that they're coming to you as a finished product.
Yeah, no, that's true. I can't, I really can't. I wouldn't say I really can't blame. I would say, but I mean, for me personally, there's a certain age group that I would say I wouldn't blame at this point because right now, because men are being emasculated, unfortunately, in the current culture, women are recycling what they are learning and recycling the emasculation of the men all over again, and they are trying to make men in their image or in the image that they feel men need to be in, and then when they connect with those men. Maybe you see on from a dating perspective, and we'll talk about some of those too, or from a marital perspective, they encounter problems, and then that's what they go on to complain about. Complain about.
We go
That's
on
all.
social media to talk
Yeah,
about you
social
guys.
media, right? So YouTube, Instagram, and all that. That's what they go on to complain about. But there's certain women who I would say that no, I can't really blame them for anything that's happening. Yes, men come to them already emasculated or not really knowing all of these things, or not being trained, and so of course, what they're getting is not what they expected or what was revealed to them. So of course, they have a legitimate reason to complain or share concern about what's going on. But definitely, there's a way out of that. There's generally a way out of that as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
So let's go back a little bit. So what brought up this topic? Why did you choose this topic to as a title of your book? So
Okay.
I know we had kind of talked a little bit last time. We pinched on it a little bit, but we knew that we will have another conversation. But
Hmm.
where did it come from? How did the topic come about? And why did you think you should write about boys?
Okay. The answer is is maybe is double pronged. So personally, how the book came about, just a brief answer about how the book came about is I was just walking. When I was living in California, I was just walking on Venice Beach, just walking by the beach, and I don't know what I was really thinking about, but then I'm a person of faith. So as I was walking down the beach, and I can't remember what I was thinking about. Everything just went silent, and I felt this inner impression, this inner voice just say, and I believe it was the God just telling me, and it said, "Write a book for my sons." And then when I heard that, I just had this vision of a title for boys in men's bodies, overcoming the struggles of growing up without a father. And that made a big impression for me because that was my struggle. That has been my struggle for the longest of time. And why that was impactful for me was because I grew up with my father left when I was 3. I remember that very, very vividly. What was said, what happened at 3 years old. But perhaps that's why I have a long memory. And then growing up, I grew up coming from a matriarchal culture. I grew up only amongst women. So I never really had any male figure around me or no man to teach me anything. And then in addition, I learned English, and I learned values from Looney Tunes, Bugs Bunny. So that's all I knew about what it meant to be a man because I had no men around me. And then when I sought men to teach me, they all left, they all ran away. So I already had started having a certain level of, even though I'm a man, I had a certain level of animosity towards men already. But you see, unfortunately, when I reached my teen years and my young adult years, there was already this general expectation about what I needed to know, how I needed to act, but I did not know it. So immediately I knew I had a problem, and I went through a lot of trials and challenges in life to overcome some of these troubles. And I'm still going through a lot of training, right? I'm still learning a lot right now. I'm going through a lot of uh, training right now to become not just a man, but more of a better man, and also be an example for other men. So, having gone through the experience and having met a lot of other young men who are going through the same or putting up facades, I figured, man, if me as a young adult or a young professional is going through a ton of this stuff, a lot of the men I'm meeting are going through this stuff. And then a lot of our young ones now are coming up and are going through quite a bit, way worse situations that we're going through than someone coming from the culture we come from. I just felt someone needs to turn around and just either create a resource or just turn around and go, hey, let me show you what this looks like. Let me show you the way. I just, because no one was there for me, I felt it would be a disservice to the youth, to young men today, if no one was there for them. So I decided to start creating pathways and systems that could help them get to where I'm at the very least, or open up doors where they can connect with men who can help them become better men in their lives. Because if they are not better men in their lives, then if if they're not better men in their lives, every other thing in their lives gets affected and it will be negatively impacted. So I figured we needed to do something about that.
That's amazing. Because most people, their go-to would be will end at the resentment level, and you
Mm-hmm.
stay there and let it brew for
Yep.
years, end up in therapy. Not to say that you don't need therapy, you need,
Mm-hmm.
everyone needs some level of therapy, right?
Mm-hmm.
But our culture, we're told, oh, be strong, men don't cry,
Mm-hmm.
like you can't be weak
Yeah, you
as a
can't be
man.
weak. You
In
can't
our
show
culture, you
weakness.
cannot show vulnerability,
Yeah.
because that makes you look weak, or you're not a 100% man.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're taking what your experience has been and you're putting it into something, writing a book, and willing to mentor young men, that's
Mm-hmm.
very important. Our culture needs it. Our
Mm-hmm.
community needs it.
Yeah.
And I've told you, there are a lot of things that we're going to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
ideas are just going through right now, because I've been talking about a resource center.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something that we can definitely do. And I'll definitely need someone like you and other people in the community to step up and help with that. We can start virtually
Mm-hmm.
before, my goal is that people will donate, we'll get donations where we can get a center, we can own a center, own land, own a building where we
Yeah.
can actually take it to, and this can spread through different states. But
Yes.
this is something that young men need. They need mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Young men need guidance. And that's why I asked that question about why is it important for boys to already have that coming up? Because yes, not everybody will come from a two-parent home.
Mm-hmm.
Not everybody will have a strong role model. Even when you have a dad, sometimes it might not be, the dad might not lead you in the right way. You might have a
That's
dad
right.
who's a drunk. You might have a dad who
Who's
is
also
never there, who's
oh yeah.
there, but not there mentally or emotionally for them.
Right.
So with that, we still need those resources. We still need that community that's positive. We need that community that's embracing, that will not shun the person who is not able to handle, their family or whatever, or the situation they're in. And
Mm-hmm.
so I really commend you for, for what you're doing.
Thank you.
My next question to you is, how important is our mindset? Is something that I've talked about a lot on the show in different ways, and different people who have been on the show have talked about mindset.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think it's very important to have a strong mindset for a young boy? And I know we're focusing on boys because the topic is about boys. Why do you think it's important?
A basic reason is that the transformation, any kind of transformation, by the way, regardless of the background you come from, transformation will veto any background you come from, no matter how bad and terrible it seems. But the basic premise behind transformation is knowledge. There's a scripture that says, "My people die because of lack of knowledge." It's almost like God is saying, "I don't want them to die, but because they don't have knowledge, they're dying just because they don't have knowledge." It's not that it's not available; they just don't know it, and that's where they're dying. And the basic premise behind any kind of transformation is knowledge. And so any transformation, even just transforming from being a boy to a man, or being a boy in a man's body becoming a man in a man's body, it takes knowledge. And so the first transformation that we all need for any kind of the first transformation we all need for any kind of transition is mental transformation. I'd like to use two examples and maybe ask them in terms of questions. Imagine a house. Just think of a house. Imagine a house. Let's imagine now that you have a picture of a house in your mind and you want to build a house. If I took the roof of the house and put it on the ground, and took the pillars of that house and put it on the roof, and then I took the door and the windows and put it on top of the pillars of the house, is that a house? The general answer is no. But
No.
but are those bits and pieces of a house?
Mm-hmm.
The answer will be yes. So it means that in the same way, knowledge is the same way. Just learning things haphazardly or learning things here and there does not produce freedom. It doesn't produce transformation. But understanding that knowledge in a sequential fashion is what produces the first level of freedom. So mental transformation, when we're reading books or when we're talking about the mindset, what a mindset it is, it's a framework. It's like building a house in which we can put the chairs, the table, the TV in so that it can exist. Because if that framework doesn't first and foremost exist, anything that you learn from anywhere, any mentorship you get, is falling in the wrong places. It's not falling in the right bucket. It's not falling in the right space. That's the first reason why mental transformation is very important, because mental transformation is all about framework and then a sequence of information that gives you a deep level of understanding. Now, the second reason is sufficiency of knowledge or depth of knowledge, which begins to invoke a kind of actionable response. So the second analogy I would like to use is, we all take exams and we take tests. Going all the way back home, they say if you have a D and E, or if you have a Z, if you have a D and E and F, it's a fail, right? But if you have a A, B, C, it's a pass. So here's the analogy. If you have a D, E, or F, it's no different than someone having a zero. You failed. Even though you have a little bit of information, it's still no different than someone having a zero. Because in life, it's either you're passing or you're failing. You failed.
Mhm.
But someone who has an A, B, or C, they passed. Here's the difference though. The person who has a B has a little bit more knowledge than the person who has a C, and the person who has an A has a little bit depth of knowledge than the person who has an A and a B.
Or you're
So they are
just a
more.
brain box, as we
Huh?
call them, brain box.
Right? so, so those are the kinds of people who will say they are excellent in what they're doing. So if you have a sequential level of understanding, and then you have a depth of knowledge, that begins to invoke an actionable response. And that is why mental transformation is first and foremost important. And then besides that, from a character perspective, you cannot really, the mind is the way the mind works. I think you know this better than I do. The mind thrives on survival. Anything that has to do with thriving or taking risk, the mind doesn't want it. The mind just wants comfort and survival. Why should I do a little bit more to get a little bit more or become a little bit more? I just want to be safe. Love and belonging needs, right? So mental transformation, you need mental transformation, and you need that mental toughness, because without it, you cannot begin to effect the change. Without it, you cannot learn something new or engage in something new or put yourself in spaces that are uncomfortable, but that will help you transform. So first and foremost, for any other transformation to happen, you need the mental one first. And there's several transformations that need to happen for boys to become men, or boys in men's bodies to become men in men's bodies, and for any other aspect of life. And some of the areas that I generally focus on is, the first and foremost you need is mental transformation. But to even begin to enter relational transformation, you need mental. But then the next is relational, because everything is connected by relationships. And if your relationships are not healthy, your life in general will not be healthy. You will generally not be at peace. Then the next, we can begin to move into financial. Then we can begin to move into physical. I mean, we can all do this simultaneously, but for me personally, this is the level of priorities. I would say spiritual is the first, but not everyone has a spiritual inclination. So I always like to take that along the way, or maybe bring that towards the end after helping people understand the foundation of the things we're talking about. But none of that happens without mental transformation, because mental transformation undergirds everything that we do in terms of where we want to be or where we want to go. So
How can we implement this in our community? Because it's easier said than done, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
how can we with little bits here and there, how can we try to introduce it into our community? What are
Um,
your thoughts?
I'll use examples. I like examples a lot. So, one of our nephews, Thomas. So growing up, staying at the Jimbong family home, one thing that I learned, and why I've been able to learn a lot, is because by knowing that I was already far behind in terms of becoming a man, or in terms of learning how to become a man, or in terms of just growth in general, I put myself in a lot of situations. So I've stayed with families with one child, no child, 10 kids, Japanese family. I've stayed with all kinds of family because I was trying to understand, what does family look like, and also what does being a leader in a family look like from different perspectives and in different cultures. I really wanted to know. In addition, I've read, I don't know how many books now, but I do have an entire library. I have been reading a lot for a long time, trying to understand scientifically, spiritually, in different ways, form and fashion, how to become a better man and be an example as well. But the question is, how do we implement that in our community? I think first and foremost, it has to begin with a personal responsibility with the men. The men have to first and foremost make a personal commitment to, I will find someone to carry along with me. What does that look like? I'll share my example. I can probably share two examples if you're open to that.
Mm-hmm.
I'll begin with Thomas. Thomas was 6 years old when I started living with them. I realized that Thomas generally stays in the house. He watches TV, Nickelodeon, whatever. And I started to look back in my own life, and I realized, well, when I was like Thomas, I wish someone took me out. So I made a personal commitment. I started to take Thomas on walks, and we just go walking in the community. And while we're walking, I'm asking Thomas about his day. But then I'm imparting to Thomas, even though he was 6 years old, three things, just three. Where God loves you. With God, all things are possible. You are not a child going to become a man. You are already a man. You're just going through childhood. So I expect you to start acting like one. I always mention this. And then after that, I started to expose Thomas some more. I will take Thomas with me to Barnes and Noble. I'll say, Thomas, pick up any book you want. And he'll pick up a book that maybe he was inclined to, architecture, technology. I'll buy it. And when we go home, he doesn't just read because he's reading. He saw me reading because I was always reading. So he started to read. And then what surprised me is he started to keep a calendar because he saw me keeping a calendar, but I did not know until he came and told me, hey, uncle, I know you're going to Las Vegas in 2 weeks, right? I'm like, how in the world? Who told you that? He said, well, I saw it on your calendar and it's marked on my calendar because we can't go out that day. So without even knowing, I was training Thomas on how to read, how to expose himself to things that will make him things that will make him successful, but also things that will make him a better man. And things that, in addition, I used to take Thomas with me. Say, I'll take Thomas to church. I will take Thomas, just he and I will go buy food, and then we talk over conversations. And fast forward to now, Thomas is becoming very good in just coding, and he's self-taught. Because he saw me reading, he decided to learn on his own, and now he's self-taught. But I haven't stopped it. Again, I have a personal commitment, because they usually say it takes a village to raise a child, but it also takes a village to raise an adult. So I didn't stop there. I made a personal commitment that every time I leave Arizona and I go back to California, one of my main priorities is Thomas. So before I go, I send Thomas, hey, Thomas, I'm coming this week. What do you want us to do? So the things included, we'll go fishing. Because in the past, men used to go fishing and hunting. And let's go fishing.
Africans don't fish.
Exactly. But that's the idea. I'm putting him in an environment that he will be uncomfortable in. He's never done it before. I've never done it before, but the goal is him. I want him to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because when he's uncomfortable, that he begins to explore his other skills and capabilities. So those are some of the things that I've been trying to do with him. So we go fishing, or hey, I'm coming. There's this place where they do horseback riding. Do you want to go give it a shot? So I'm trying to put him in situations where there can be a controlled level of fear, where he's challenged and where he feels uncomfortable. And in that environment, he can explore and become more of a better man. And then now the recent assignment that I gave him was, I need you to read this number of chapters a day, and I need you to be able to do this other exercise. And every week, report to me how you're doing. What I'm trying to do is create a space where he can be honest about his successes and his failures, and develop consistency in habits that will help him succeed. So those are the little things that I try to teach him just by being there. But at the end of the day, it does take time, but that is a commitment that we men in our community have to make for those that are coming behind us. And I've done it for Thomas, and I've done it for my little brother as well. But what I've been doing recently is a lot of men were coming to me and asking, hey, can you disciple us? Can you teach us? There's a lot that you know that we don't know. Can you? And these are some of them are married people. Some of them are older than I am, and some of them are younger than I am. So what I decided to do was open up my home for discipleship. So while I might be working, I may have a free time between 11 to 1. A young man drives in, we sit, I make food, I put it in front of him, and we sit across the table and we have an honest, the most brutally honest conversation we can have. And I think one of the things, maybe I can share this later, one of the things that I try to share with them are certain commitments that I made to myself, which were part of my transformation process, transformation process, But one of the things that I try to share with them is the commitments I make to myself that has helped get me to where I'm at right now. So I think, what does that look like? First and foremost, before virtually, it starts with a personal commitment to do that for people in your family and people in your neighborhood. And then if you
Mhm.
have something virtual, of course, we can have people from across the community, across the nation come together who we can begin to teach them certain
Yeah.
things, whether it's professional development, how to negotiate a salary, expose them to possible career paths or business paths that they
Mhm.
never otherwise would have been able to come to. And I did that for Thomas too by taking him to Disney, and then I tried to introduce him to Imagineers. That's something he's never heard before. And then I took him to the Art Center, which is the number one art center, one of the top art training centers in the world. And this is where the designs for the cars that we drive today or that we'll be driving tomorrow come from. The designs for the buildings tomorrow come from. So I took him to that building, showed him everything, and introduced him to the kids who are actually going to that school, designing live things that are being requested, and have Thomas have a conversation with these kids. And so right now, Thomas is kind of he already at 9, he already knows what he wants to do. He already knows what he needs to study. He already knows the next book he wants to buy. He already
Mhm.
knows what he wants to talk about when I show up. So it's just the time and the commitment to begin to impact to those behind us first and foremost before we go virtually.
Yeah, I mean, it'll make a big difference in our community. I'm just listening to you and my head is exploding because we grew up with where we hear no for everything. You want to do something, no, we don't have money, or no, you cannot do that, you cannot
Mhm.
succeed in that, you cannot, you keep hearing that to the point where you start believing that you cannot do something.
Yes.
So yeah, yes, we're not trying to say that boys should just run wild and do whatever. We're trying to groom them. We
Hmm.
want our young men in the community, and we're focusing on men because yes, like you said, men are the providers, the protectors, and all that. If you don't groom them in that fashion, I mean, later when they're in their 30s, it's too late, right? It's
Yeah.
they
It
catch
becomes a
up.
challenge. It becomes, once
Yes.
they get into their 30s, it becomes quite a challenge because at that point they have experienced so much negative feedback that all they are doing at 30 and above is reacting to the negative feedback.
Mhm.
But in maybe their teenage years and their early late 20s, there's a lot of room to learn and there's a lot of room to make mistakes. But
Yeah.
from 30s moving forward, you don't have too many, you don't have enough space and too many chances to make careless mistakes.
Mhm.
And at that point, everyone is just trying to protect themselves and survive. And then they're just reacting to the negative feedback they're getting from around them.
Mhm.
So yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying.
Yeah. So we need a lot of mentorship. So what I'm hearing is people need to find someone we start in our households. It's not like I'm just here, I'm gonna dump my two boys on the world, like, oh y'all just take care of him. Okay,
Yeah.
Uncle Corride, these are yours. these, these are yours, Uncle Asaba. Take one. All I did was incubate them, bring them to the world, and then we have to start in our household to groom them.
Mhm.
I even see it with my boys, Sammy, coaching Seth, really taking on that responsibility, that he wants to make him into a man, to the point where when
Mhm.
I want to interfere, to even say something like after a game, he will say, Mom, this is our time, stay out of this. Like, I'm literally
Wow.
pushed to the side for
Uh-huh.
him to talk to his brother and like coach him, like
Oh
really
yeah.
coach him, and tell him things. So before he left for school, he felt confident that he left a little young man at home. So that starts from the house. I
It
see it
does.
in my household, where I'm trying to do the best I can, of course, with my husband as well. We're doing that together, trying to raise these people. So we
Mhm.
start from our homes, and then the community, we have to spread it in our community, and we have to share this information. That's why we have these platforms available,
Mhm.
because somebody will be hearing about this, and they might be struggling in their home with raising their kids, or with certain things, and they think that they're the only one struggling. But if we start coming together in small groups and empowering each other, so that people can, because like I said, families come in different types. Not everybody will have a man in the house, right? We have
Mhm.
single mothers. You were raised by a single mother,
That's right.
and you've turned out the way you've turned out. She did her best to raise
Yeah.
four boys.
Yeah.
And there are other people who have a man in the house and they might have a wayward son still, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what my point here is that our community needs to be empowered to know that we can come together, we can mentor young men. If you see a young man and you see something in them, you can go to the parent and pull that them aside and make that commitment, just like you have a commitment to Thomas. Make
Mm-hmm.
that commitment that I want to mentor this boy,
Mm-hmm.
in whatever way you can commit 2 hours a week. That's it. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a whole lot, just 2 hours.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes kids hearing from somebody that they look up to, when they come home, you see a different person in that child. If we start doing that and we see 10, we change the lives of 10 kids,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a bad number in the
Mm-hmm.
community. That's a big deal because
Yeah.
that will spread, because those kids will grow up now and commit to doing that again. So we
Mm-hmm.
need to really not just talk about these things and start implementing them in little bite sizes. I
Mm-hmm.
know you're already doing it in your way. How
Yeah.
can we get other people to join you in this effort to
Okay.
start mentoring people or to start transferring this knowledge to other people in the community? How can we get other people on board?
I think first of all is having a system to deploy the little bits of knowledge that we have, a system of training. I think I think what I've learned so far, I've learned from a non-for-profit called Field and Faith. It started by a 37-year-old guy, three kids, an American, and he too grew up like I did, no male figure and everything. And then he went through, I mean, from prison to, he's gone through all kinds of crazy things, but now he's extremely successful. He has, a wife and three kids, and he also made a commitment to raise up as many men as possible from the foster care system to other systems while he's still working full time. And so when I connected with him, I told him, I said, hey, you are a man, you are a man's man, but besides that, you are a leader who's also vulnerable. How is that even possible? So we started sitting down and talking, and with Field and Faith, I realized he had put together a system. Science tells us, I can't quote you the exact study at this point, but based on a recent study that he shared with me, he says that for men to become men and for men to be transformed, men need to hang out, need to get together at least twice during the week. That's what he said. So he created a system where, okay, how is it possible using an app? Is it possible that we keep communicating as men, just men within men, but create something where twice a week we're getting together? So we put together events where maybe once in a while on Sundays we go out skeet shooting, and then maybe during the week we get together for coffee and just talk. It could be one on one or it be in group. And then I do something where I put together a dinner and I invite the boys, and we just sit, we eat, and we talk. That alone is enough to begin to transform any boy or any man's mind. Because when you are amongst men, listening to what men are talking about, which is not generally sex, drugs, or money, but you're hearing men with growth mindset talking about business, success, failures, because they are exposed to that environment, they start to believe, oh, wait a minute, I can do that too. They did that. We start normalizing for them what life looks like. So we need to, from a community perspective, if we're going to start maybe on a local community, we need to, I know we're generally in groups, maybe our own group or whatever, we can say,
Mhm.
hey, this man is putting together an event for just the men from this age to this age. We're going fishing. He may not know how to fish, but if you know someone who does,
Mhm.
or even say, I can connect you with Luke, Luke can create something or tell you a friend that's down there, you all just going out to fish. The man might not need to say anything, but the
Mhm.
fact that it's just boys throwing out it's
Mhm.
something out there, just hanging
And
out,
leaving the women at home.
and just leaving the women at home, the conversations that come out, you start, and I saw this firsthand. Men started talking, man, I've been thinking about suicide. Man, I've been going
Mhm.
through so many challenges, I just wanted to give up. I've been trying to apply for a job, I don't even know what to do. The conversations just come out by themselves. And
Mhm.
then you have a stronger man who has gone through most of these challenges, being open and vulnerable to say, hey, I've been where you are before. Are you feeling like this, and like this? Well, I felt like that too. And this is how, and then they will ask you, but boys always want to solve problems. How did you deal with that? And then you tell them.
Mhm.
That builds the kind of trust where you don't even need to call on people and say, hey, I'm having this happening today.
Mhm.
They will start calling you and start asking you, when are we going? Are we going to hang out anytime soon? Can we go on a hike? Can we go play soccer somewhere? Can we just go watch a movie somewhere? So that's where it starts. From a local perspective, I say that's where it starts. Just maybe if there's already a man who is willing to just give maybe even one or two of them. I'm going to take the boys on Saturday just to go watch a movie, or let's just go get breakfast or dinner, or let's just go running and jogging together. Because men definitely learn and bond. Every man needs a band of brothers. That's what I have learned. Every man needs a band of brothers. So if you can do something together, and men generally learn in action, if we can just go do something together, let's do it. So if they say Uncle Nate taking the boys out to just go play soccer in the morning, right? Or maybe
You
someone
don't have to tell him twice. You don't have to tell Uncle Nate that twice.
yeah. So I know, and I know Uncle Nate's passion. So let's go. Come on, let's go. We'll play. We'll win. You know how excited he gets when it comes to soccer, right? And maybe another man saying on Wednesday evening, I'm taking the boys on a hike. That alone begins the transformation. And then from there, it could just be, okay, let's get together on Sunday and talk about this particular topic. Or if during the conversations, the boys raise the topic about how do you even find a job? How, if I wanted to do this, is there a pathway for it? Then you can do research, or you can invite the boys and do research with them. From a virtual perspective, which I've also kind of sort of done a little bit, is just putting together a program, or actually having a set of resources like a book, and doing a mastermind with the men based around a need that they have or a topic they want to talk about. I'll use myself as an example. Okay, so I would call myself a Mr. Nice Guy. I used to be really nice, but you know what I say, nice
Used
people.
to. So you're a recovered nice
Oh no,
guy.
I'm a recovering Mr. Nice Guy now.
The girls, what is it? The friend, you're in the friend zone, always in
Yeah,
the
I've been
friend
friend
zone.
zoned a lot. I've been used a lot.
The
I
friend,
was,
Mr. Nice in the friend zone.
I know. I'm like, but I'm the nice guy. I mean, I am the nice
That
guy.
sounds like my Sammy. Sammy was always in the friend zone, and he finally came to me. He's like, "Mommy, I'm always in the friend zone." The way you want to take it the next level, they're like, "No, Sammy,
No,
you're a friend."
I just want to talk to you. I want to get my ego stroked by you. And then when you need something, want to talk to you. And then you also have people men and women who want to walk over you because they can, because you're nice. You always want to keep the peace. You don't conflict avoidant. And the thing I learned about conflict, just being honest, I learned from you, because you're very good at just opening up and talking about things. And I didn't used to be from the culture I came from. So how I learned it is I was studying with some men online, and also Luke. And Luke is the person I always go to check things with. And I found out that there was a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy. I bought that book immediately. And when I read it, I was shocked. It explained me to the T, and it explained my vulnerabilities as a nice person, my assumptions as a nice person. And so from there, I came out with a few commitments, which I communicated with Luke, and I put it in action. And since then, the change is like 180 almost immediately. Now I'm reading another book, understanding women in a sense. So I'm constantly
That
reading.
explains why you haven't been returning my calls lately, because you're no longer Mr. Nice Guy. I get it.
Hey, you can still trust me. I'm safe. I mean, I'm still a safe and healthy person. So I still know I still have my boundaries and my values. So that hasn't gone anywhere. But that is so putting together, say something around, say, for boys and men's bodies, or no more Mr. Nice Guy, and having that conversation with men, and then from then giving them action steps. That is another way we can go about it from a virtual perspective. Having coaching, mentoring, or mastermind sessions with a community of young men. It will go a long way. And then, but we always have to translate what they're learning mentally into something actionable. So taking all that and infusing into, let's go shooting skits together. Let's go play games. Let's go do something together. When you merge those two together, it always often brings ongoing transformation. The only challenge is once we start, we can't stop. Because if you start doing this thing for teens and young adults and end somewhere, say 21, 22, or maybe 18, 19, 20, the truth is, because with the changes in the seasons of our lives, they enter new challenges that they may not know how to deal with. And so they are back to square one again in the new season of their life. So I think what I'm learning also is, once we start, we can't stop, but we give them the option that as they grow and they feel comfortable, let them be the ones to step up and move. but we make sure that we impress this one thing as a requirement to them, just like you said. I am doing this for you with an expectation that you will be doing this for someone else
Mm-hmm.
while I'm doing this with you or when you leave. If you cannot commit to that, let's not even begin this journey. But you
Mm-hmm.
have to make sure you have your brothers and your brothers' backs as well. While you're going through this, or after you go through this. So once they have that impressed upon their hearts, generally what I've seen is while I'm teaching, training, they come back with stories of implementing the things we're talking about on people that are coming to them for exactly the same thing. And
Mm-hmm.
then they're doing exactly what I did for them by telling the same people, go and do that for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's really amazing. You're talking about local, like implementing it at a local level. That's definitely something that we can do, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we're talking again. I keep bringing it back. We're talking about young men. It doesn't mean that we're leaving the girls out. The girls will have their own thing going on.
Oh,
Today, we're focused on the boys.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
We have, I mean, we have the adults who have their band of men. They
Yeah.
come together. We saw we experienced it in this town just recently, or in this city recently, where the guys came together, the soccer guys came together and took care of one of their own who passed away. And that's the kind of love that we want to see in the community, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I'm really focusing on the younger ones, bringing them up so that they come up with that mentality. So those are the things that I'm really I'm wanting to start from the grassroots, bringing them
Yeah.
up. So like
Mm-hmm.
different age groups. So these are things that we're just introducing it here. But like you said, it's a commitment. Once you said that, I was like, okay, do I even want to start this? Am I going to follow through? But it will not take one or two people. It takes the community to come
Mm-hmm.
together. We need a bunch of people to commit, that they're willing to mentor young men, that they're willing to do this, and so that it's not tiresome to just one particular person trying to do this. The community has to come together, and we find a way to do it, to grow us, so that we're growing positive minded people, strong minded people,
Growth minded.
entrepreneurial
Yeah.
mindset,
Yeah.
people who are willing to pull others with them, not push them down or step on them when they're down, because
Yeah.
that's what our community is used to: toxicity,
Yeah.
negativity, all the,
Mm-hmm.
all of that. We don't want that. We want to change the narrative. We
Mm-hmm.
want to change it to a positive one, where we can now be a community of strong men, strong women, like who are going to transform the world. But this is just an introduction. Is there any question that I haven't asked that you thought I should ask, or something that we was burning in your mind in relation to this topic that you think the community needs to know while we're wrapping up here, so that we can call it a day?
I think it's something that I've been bringing in my mind that I figured at some point I might just get on the phone and talk about it with you from a community perspective. From the last time that we spoke, you had mentioned, this is what we need to do. You were talking about exposure. This is what we need to do: expose ourselves to more things, to be able to share the possibilities of more things with most of the kids that are coming up. And an example for me is when I'm taking Thomas and I'm driving around with Thomas and we're going to his favorite place to eat, and I see a hospital. I say, Thomas, instead of just thinking of becoming a nurse, why don't you think about starting a hospital that employs nurses? I just want to challenge him that way. Instead of being a real estate agent, why don't you own a real estate company that acquires? And so I was thinking about that. And you had asked me, you had challenged. I don't know if it's a challenge, but you said something with respect to our community, and I had to think deep about it. And I thought, why are we the way we are? And I think it definitely affects men, but I just want to make it general. Why are we the way we are? And I started to realize, and you just mentioned it right now, is exposure is powerful both positively and negatively. And all we are exposed to is each other and each other's problems.
Mm-hmm.
And because we're exposed to each other and each other's problems, all we talk about is each other's problems and each other.
Mm-hmm.
But if we were to find a way to expose ourselves to everything else that besides each other, then I think that narrative will begin to change. Because something I learned is from a great man is stop talking about people, talk about ideas, not people.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't even have enough ideas to be talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So I really wanted to impress upon just the community, going off of what you said, that we really do need to start exposing ourselves to a lot of things. I'll use an example again. The aircraft carrier, uh, There's an aircraft carrier in San Diego, just 2 hours away from me when I used to live in Los Angeles. And for 7 years, I didn't go there. Why? Why wasn't I thinking about going there? It's right there. Everything we're looking for is right there, but I didn't even think, it didn't even occur to me until I thought about Thomas. And I started to realize the more we think about other people, the more we force ourselves to get exposed
Mhm.
for their sake. So that's one thing I want to impress upon people in the community, that start thinking about, don't just think about yourself. I believe even in the business idea you might be thinking about, when you start thinking about the kids, you start to think about, oh wait, what can I do to make sure their lives are better,
Mhm.
or at least set up a platform for them to come forward. So when I
Mhm.
started thinking about Thomas, that's when I started to think about exposure, about fishing, about, currently I'm being trained to be a cowboy. I'm a horse, right? I don't even know why I'm learning this stuff, but I'm learning it so one day I can bring Thomas here and go show him what a relationship with horses teaches us about a relationship with ourselves,
Mhm.
right? So when I thought about taking Thomas and I took Thomas down there, his mind was blown, but he didn't realize how blown my mind was, because I didn't realize how big this thing was.
Mhm.
And then the idea was, someone actually thought about this thing and then it got created. What makes Thomas any different than that person who created this thing? So when I started to think of exposure that way, and also think about exposure from, it's not me trying to be comfortable and fit in, it's more so what can I open up more for our people in our
Mhm.
community? It made things a little bit easier. So I want
Yeah.
to put it out as a challenge that if they are, hanging gardens or monuments or historical things that we need to learn, or things that we can learn that are possible for us to learn, I just want to challenge the community that we need to
Mhm.
be willing to put ourselves in these uncomfortable positions to learn these new things, of doing things new ways of doing things, making money, doing business, new ways of traveling, just to, and new ways of connecting with people who are beyond our field, so that when we come back and we're having these conversations, whatever it is that is the right thing will spark in the hearts of our kids and our
Mhm.
young ones, will spark that fire that will cause them to begin to go in the field that they have been called to go in, not be compressed and forced to do only the things that we have already done in the past. Because
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people, I want to do nursing because my mom did nursing, because my mom did nursing. Wait a minute. What if you were called to be an engineer? Whoa, 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 whoa. What if you were called to work for NASA? Well, you didn't
Mhm.
think about that. What if you were called to be work in the White House as a chief counsel? You haven't ever thought about that with your English degree, you know. So that's the only thing that has been bringing on my mind that I've thought about for a while, and I figured, we're not exposing ourselves to ideas and new things. Just we're only exposed to ourselves. So I want to challenge people in the community to really start exposing themselves to other things beyond themselves.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm just, yeah, you've said it all. I don't even need to say much to round up, but I appreciate you coming back to the show. We'll definitely have you back again because that brain, we need to keep picking on it. Next week, we're having a panel of real estate agents in our community. That will be the conversation next week. So you guys don't relent. Tune in next week again. It will be a panel where, yeah, we'll be talking about with a bunch of people because we have to make sure that we keep empowering, everyone in the community. We want to
Mhm.
thank you for being on the show today and for sharing all this knowledge with us. I hope that we'll start having these conversations. We'll start having some summer camps. We'll start having some,
Mhm.
fireside conversations where we
Oh, yeah.
can empower people and get them thinking outside the box, getting outside of their comfort zone to make our community better because that's the goal here, to empower, uplift, and inspire people. Thank you again, Ishmael, for being
Yeah.
here, and I'll catch you on the phone.
Yes, yeah. See you soon.